Hey guys, on this episode of EdTech, I'm joined by Scott Tyner, Rob Raspberry, and Ernie Bailey. And we're going to be talking about school safety, digital signage, and media players, as well as basic tips and tricks for your campus. All this on EdTech.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is EdTech, episode 62, Pass Alliance.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Atlas IED, innovative audio solutions for every business environment.
This is EdTech, the monthly higher ed tech podcast. I'm your host, Bill O'Donnell, and this time I'm joined by the illustrious Ernie Bailey.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Nice to be here.
Mr. Scott Tyner.
Hey, Bill. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course,
glad to be back.
Yes. He's for those who don't know, Scott has been one of the OGs of the podcast, and now he's back. So it's great to have you back, sir. And last but not least, my cohort from across the river, the one, the only, Mr. Rob Raspberry. How are you, sir?
Great. Greetings and salutations.
Well, he is in Philly. You gotta ritz it up a little bit here. Oofa. No. All right. So first and foremost, the first article we're going to talk about today comes from mytechdecisions.com, and it's the 7 tools and technologies you should consider in 2018. So there's a couple of things that they go off about and everything, and there's things that they've talked about in order to kind of make life easier. And this is if you're more on the IT side of things, how do you make things easier for your business, or in our case, our campus. There's a couple of things that they talk about that I find kind of interesting. Some of them, you hear this and you go, okay, and how does this apply to me? One of the ones that they talked about was chatbots, which I don't know if you've ever dealt with it, but most times if you're on a website and everything, all of a sudden those kinds of things kind of help automate things. Now, is it the end all of things? No, but it does kind of alleviate certain little items here and there. My personal fave is if someone is trying to get their password unlocked or something like that. Could a chatbot help with that? Sure, but most times they're not. It's usually something you got to call someone over the phone about. The other one that was kind of an interesting thing that said, "Oh yes," was IT automation. Now, I don't know. I'll ask. As I say, I'll go to you guys in a minute here. But certain aspects of automation that scare me in the fact that it's one of those. Oh, well, if you have a support question, well, just give this person a phone call and they'll remote in. Well, that only goes so far. In fact, if anything, there's a sister college there's a sister school that we do work with. It's Mercer County College, and they outsourced pretty much all their IT staff. So if you have to do anything, yes, it's kind of automated through the phone tree. And I don't know about you, but I've had some faculty members who are rather seasoned, and they need a body in the room. They need some hand holding, and it's nothing wrong with that so much as it's an idea, but I don't think it's not for everybody. So Scott, I'm going to go to you first on this one because, well, you're back in the barrel, so you're up.
Okay. So for me, we'll start out with chatbots. I completely despise chatbots, and anytime I have to do anything and you get that immediate response when you go to chat with somebody, it puts me over the edge. Now, I think that's because I'm a technical person, and in my view, when I've gone to get help from somebody, it's because I've worked through everything a chatbot's going to tell me to do, and now I need to speak to somebody. The one that really struck me is Microsoft Teams. We don't use Microsoft Teams here at Bates because we're a Google house, but we do use Slack, which is a comparison to Microsoft Teams, and I believe that it has changed how we do work. It's improved our efficiency, our knowledge. And so whether you're an IT team, an AV team, a small integrator, large integrator, I think getting on that type of tool, whether it's Google Hangout Chat, Microsoft Teams, or Slack, can completely change what you do.
Yeah, I'll actually counter with that. In fact, actually within AVNation, we do actually have a Slack group, and it's a good way to kind of keep in touch with everybody. On a larger scale, I've also seen folks use Discord, but I mean, that's, once you open up a Discord channel, I mean, that's where you end up doing subgroups within that, and that's on, anyone can log into it and anyone can see what's going on and everything. The only reason, that I view some of those Discord channels is mostly because, say there's a certain website, and some of them are kind of their own kind of homebrew deals. It's a lot easier to get a hold of them via Discord than it is via, say, like Microsoft Teams. Mostly because Microsoft Teams, it's it's like anything with Microsoft, you have to pay for the service. Whereas, as I say, I don't know about Discord, but I know Slack and Google Hangouts and things like that. It's a lot easier, and it's just one of those, here it is, just go and have at it and everything like that. Ernie, do you guys use Slack, or is it just use Outlook as a chain to beat people with?
Right now, we're using the Skype for Business chat tools and collaboration tools. That's getting ready to go away on our campus. In fact, I've got a meeting with our migration team about, our entire unified communication system that we use. But, we use the tools within IT, both for, quick chats, as well as the group discussions. We have some open groups. We have some closed groups. Like on my monitor just to the left of me here, I can look and I can see what's going on in IT across campus, what issues we're having, if anything's popping up, so we can track whatever's going on. That leads, I guess, kind of towards the IT automation on the list. Kind of lets us work together as a collaborative board, if you will, for supporting the campus and whatever IT needs are out there. One thing I really liked on this list was, what do they call it? Knowledge management. We keep a knowledge base tool. We got several tools we use to build knowledge bases, and it gives us a place where all of our techs can go and look and see, this is what's been happening in this room, or this is how we solved this problem before. So we've got it right there in front of us, and we have a good solution to try anyway. And getting it organized. Other parts of our IT here on our campus have used that for a while. We're starting to build our own just for classroom technologies.
Yeah, it's very true on our campus with that one. We actually use our ticket system to kind of go and double check back about certain classrooms if there's been a repeat issue and everything. And in fact, we just recently we had a ticket come in where the faculty were like, "Oh, the screen's not working. Oh, things have been bad," and we're going, "Okay, well, let's go and see what's going on." And turned out the motor died. That happens. But we had actually gone through, and I was like, well, let's go and check and take a look again and everything. And yeah, there had actually been a couple other tickets where, the thing had started to, die down, or all of a sudden didn't come all the way down. And we're going, oh yeah, the warning signs were there. All right. So it's caused us to kind of reflect on certain things and kind of be like, oh, okay, you know what, we really should start taking a look at things. And if anything, it's actually caused us to, this summer, we're going to be changing out about 30 screens or so.
Yeah.
Which is nothing deadly, but at the same time, it keeps us from, suddenly being caught in that ruh-roh moment when, the faculty are about to give, a large scale lecture, and it's like, hey, where's the screen? The only thing that out of this list that I looked at and went, okay, this is interesting, I don't know how they're going to work it in, was the blockchain. Because I looked at this, I'm going, well, there's no AV token. I mean, let's put it this way. If it's a way, it's one of those things I looked at and said, this is a good way of keeping, if we end up like doing billing for services and everything, yes, then it's a good way to distribute out a ledger, because that's what blockchain.
That's what it is.
It's a distributed ledger, but
it can be a distributed database as well if you want to use it for storing your information and being able to get to it easily.
That is true. I won't lie. My as I say, at least as I say, Ernie, I'm sure you're just like me in this one, in the fact that we have we do have we have like multiple data centers, and in that it's like one's the cold backup site, the other one's the main site, and well, all our stuff is held on a virtual server, or a virtual box on a server. So it's like, oh, it went down. Okay. Well, okay, boot it back up. All right, there's the last save point. Oh, okay, there you go. Is it a bad idea? No, it's just, let's put it this way. I could see something on the scale of, like, say, a Rutgers or something like that, because you're talking about across multiple campuses, and I'm sure if Tim's watching, Tim Van Wart, who's has a similar position that we all have. Tim's probably watching this and just going, I'm not implementing blockchain at Rutgers. No way, no how. But anyways.
Well, an interesting side on blockchain, we were working on the new CTS exam last week. And there was actually discussion about, do we need any blockchain questions? And, the answer right now is blockchain is not an AV tool.
No.
So, if it evolves into one, we've got some data built up in the question database. You're not going to see any coming up in the near future.
Yeah, you're right. I tend to agree with you on this one, Ernie, in that it's a good way if we're talking about, like, say, database distribution or database backup kind of thing. I could easily see that as a good means.
Right, but like I said, it's not an AV tool at this time.
Not at the moment. So, moving on here. Next up, this comes to us from Rave Pubs. It's PASS, an alliance you need to know about.
Who wrote this article? Do you know?
Scott Tyner.
Oh, did Scott write this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, some guy who doesn't really.
Yeah. So, Scott, I was going to say, what a strange coincidence how this happened.
So I think as we all were very surprised, saddened by what happened in Florida and what's happened in other schools around the country. So I had written an article before this, essentially saying in the industry we are all in, we have the knowledge, the tools, the equipment to really do something to help this. And so I was kind of trying to make a public call for that. I got a phone call a few days later, and somebody said, "Oh, listen, this already exists." As a matter of fact, one of the people involved was Gina Sansevero. Oh, did I just say that right?
Sansevero, don't worry.
Okay.
She's 5 feet. She's 5 feet of fury. She'll maul you.
Yes, I know. And so she introduced us to Chuck Wilson, who already has this PASS alliance, and this is what they do. They go to schools. Public schools, and they talk about safety all around, not just safety against weapons or violence, but against natural disasters and the like. They have a volunteer board. They try and raise money, and everything that they do is free. So they'll give schools guidance about different tiers of security that they can implement. They are obviously manufacturer independent. But it's a great opportunity for those of us in the industry who have knowledge and have tools to give of that knowledge and tools in a way. My take was the politics behind it and all that, or other people can argue that, and there's valid arguments there on both sides. But let's do something in the meantime.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I started reading it and everything, and you're right. It's one of those things where, well, as I say, Scott, in the terms of PASS, there's both the physical security as well as, like I'm guessing there's also surveillance, as well as just, basic kind of situational awareness, I'm going to assume. And it's one of those things that you just kind of, it's one of those things where it's just, listen, we're not like trying to turn the place into a police state or anything like that. So much as it's just, it's being aware of things and just, you know what, these are just trying to, it's literally just trying to make things safer. It's that, right?
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing for me, and this is something that Chuck Wilson said that I wrote about in this article that surprised me, because I also have this feeling of, is this ever possible? Can we actually ever secure all of our schools? Well, first of all, and I don't remember the number right now, but if you go to the PASS website, they have an introduction to the organization, and they mention the number of public schools in the country, which is surprisingly small. And all of a sudden I thought, okay, that's not as big as I expected it to be. But then he said 50 years ago, we didn't have fire codes for all of our schools, and students were dying in fires in schools. And as soon as we put those in, we haven't lost a student in a school fire in 50 years. And to kind of get that idea across that we can do this, we can be better about keeping our schools safe.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I'm sure like some folks will get up into the debates on this one, but yours is literally like, here's the code system. That's all this is really boiling down to. It's just here's some ways to kind of implement things. We're not saying you have to do it, but it's like, this just makes life easier for all of us.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Ernie, have you guys well, I'm trying to think about this. I mean, God, geez, you guys are you guys are already part of a hospital. So I mean, there's already security. There's already security things up and going up and down the street.
Yeah, we're a level 1 trauma center.
Yeah.
So.
Ernie's like, yeah. You look and go, that's it.
Yeah. We've got the sirens and all that, but I did find, talking about safety, and what Scott mentioned, there's also the fire safety and weather safety you got involved. We're a big tornado area where we are. And there was actually tweets coming out this morning from one of our major news groups here, that pointing out that a recent study that's just being released shows that schools that have safe rooms, whether it's to get away from a shooter or away from protect you from a tornado or whatever, their evacuation time is slower once they get a safe room. So I found that to be interesting. And you would think you have it, but I'm guessing they say, we've got our own safe room in here. We don't have to worry about what to do, so we're taking our time. I haven't read the article yet. Like I said, I was just getting the tweets a few minutes ago about the study that just came out. So, but I had never thought about something like that.
I was going to jump in there, everybody, so Drexel is right near 30th Street Station. And so one of the things that we get involved in almost quarterly is there's a FEMA exercise, basically going through different kinds of setups and what to do in different types of disaster, whether an oil spill or something blows up, that kind of thing. And those kind of situations sort of better prepare you for these kind of hazards and potential dangerous, situations.
Right.
Yeah. Around here on campus, the bigger one of the big things that we've had more than lately has been how do we actually it's been setting up the lockdown status, and one of the other bigger things is we've been changing out from traditional mortise locks to key card access and things like that, but the big thing has also been tying in the fire system. And I know some of the safety folks are probably, if they hear any of this, they're like, well, duh, but it's like, yes, but keep in mind, my campus, God, I'm still moving out chalkboards. So I mean, wiring in fire safety into electronic locks. Yeah, that's kind of cutting edge on our end. But it's one of those things where, it's a progression of things. So, all right. Last but not least, this comes to us from avnetwork.com. It's the 5 things to know before selecting media players for your next job. Now, I know on my campus, we do have some traditional self-serving kiosks and everything like that. We also have media players for digital signage, and I won't lie. Some folks, there was the original phase when digital signage and kiosks were a brand new thing, and you would get things from like X2O Media or Scala, and some of these things were essentially, they took a tower PC and you just kind of put it in and hooked it up to the touch display and everything, and things have become a lot more solid state and a lot more stable. And you have companies like BrightSign that can make digital signage players for a couple $100. There's even folks though who are doing more of the homebrew solution, and they're going, well, why can't we just do a Raspberry Pi and do it up? Well, and there's some other folks who are just like, oh, I'll just get a DVD player and do it up myself. As I say, unfortunately, I do know a college that shall remain nameless that did that, and I'm just like, eeh. But one of the things, a couple of things that they go over and talk about in there is, I think it's also to take a look at some of it's to kind of protect against kind of knockoffs or the very cheaply made ones. A couple of the big things that they talk about are that there are like actual product testing and control that goes into these things. One of the things you don't realize until you do a factory tour, and Rob and Ernie, you guys have probably seen this and everything, in that if you go to some of the manufacturers, they actually have to do, when they go into, if they submit things for UL listing and everything, sometimes they'll try to do some of their own testing. But one of the big ones is, well, if the player's in a kiosk, there's probably not the best ventilation in there, and it's probably cooking itself in there. And most of these manufacturers actually these days do more thermal testing. It's mostly for their power supplies, but it's one of those things like, they're doing a lot more stuff in-house and everything. And there's, as I say, if anything, if you guys ever get the chance, it's Crestron. If you ever do their factory tour, there is literally just, you go walking by and it's a giant oven, and they're putting their equipment in there to kind of bake it to see how long the equipment can last before it breaks down. So it's kind of an interesting note. But so Rob, have you guys done any kiosk deployments, or you guys look at that and just go, oh, that's hospitality, you guys have fun?
Well, at this point, sort of that seems to be the case. We don't have a central control or one unit that's buying the kiosks, all across campus. We've deployed a couple of them ourselves, and obviously durability is the big key. I mean, those things are on all the time. They're baking. You can't have something that's cheaply made and just sit it out there and expect that it's going to last any more than 30 days. So unfortunately, it's not something we have dealt with on a large scale.
It's okay. It's one of those things where there are some folks. A couple months back, there was a gentleman from Georgia Tech who, he made the joke of "go big or go home," and I remember going through that and going, "Did you guys work all this out?" And they're like, "Well, it's there." And I'm like, "Okay." But if anything, we're also talking about Georgia Tech being in being in Atlanta and having a footprint far bigger. Rob's the closest one that I can view as far as how much of a city footprint and whatnot.
Right.
Scott, what are your thoughts?
I was a little surprised when I read the article that they had focused so much on the hardware piece, because for me, kiosk, digital signage, it's all about the software. And as you'd mentioned, whether it's BrightSign or other products that are just putting apps on an Apple TV or something, it's really about the software piece for me. So I appreciate the fact that often we put this box in a place that's hard to get to. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to be out there every 30 days, as Robert said, trying to replace something. At the same time, I'd rather pay for the software and go out there and replace a $150 box every few years than pay a lot of money for the box. And then system we use here at Base for digital signage, we've seen it go that way. That we used to buy a box from them. Now we can use whatever box we want, and we're just paying for the software.
Now,
I was going to say that, but there's a distinct difference between, at least in my opinion, digital signage and a kiosk. You know, digital signage is up running. It's usually in some place that's not terribly accessible, a little more better ventilation as opposed to a kiosk, which you're standing. It's enclosed in a small, you know, piece of furniture. And in that regard, you're right. Your signage, the software is the main part of it, because and I hate to say it, Bill, you know, there are some people that will take the Raspberry Pi, put it up on the back of a monitor. And these days now, the monitors have their own embedded, you know, little PC, so to speak. So it's already included in there.
When it comes to both these things, and this is actually something that I actually wanted to bring up with you guys, is that hardware excluded. When it comes to signage and things like that, and Scott, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, it is the software. It's also at times for some of the folks, you know, we'll get it tacked onto us, and it's one of those, okay, here's part of your additional job duties. I've actually seen a number of the software from folks and the manufacturers actually partner with a content production company. And for them, it's kind of making more templates and things like that. Do you see, like, you know, as far like, you know, we are talking about hardware, and yeah, hardware is always going to be around, but I see, you know, the progressive future of things as far as kiosks or as far as signage and everything. It's really about the software, and it's really about the actual content creators and content makers. And in that case, I'd almost say, like, you know, hey, if you buy from BrightSign, we'll give you a discount to go with Slides R Us. God help me, there's a company called that, but still.
Really?
There probably is, and I'm probably going to get a cease and desist letter after this, but still.
You never got one of those before.
Well, as I say, I've gotten interesting emails after this podcast, and we'll keep it to that. Anyway,
Bill, I agree completely with that. We were fortunate enough when we first started. I mean, our first digital sign was a Mac Mini running PowerPoint that we'd have to remote into and change every time we wanted. Thankfully, we only had one of those before we went. We went to a professional system, but it's all about design and content. And I think that if you're an integrator that's selling this, it's brilliant to get into a service of designing the content. It's a brilliant move. It's where you can make your money.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, fair enough. All right, folks, that's about all the time we have. All right, Scott, we're going to start off with you. Where can the fine folks find you on the internet?
I'm on LinkedIn, Scott Tyner. I'm on Twitter at @STyner. And other than that, I just lurk around the internet other than those two places.
Don't say the dark net, please.
No, I'm not going to say it. I almost did, but no.
We already talked about blockchain. Don't go any further. No. Ernie, where can the fine folks find you?
You can also find me on LinkedIn.
That's good. And Mr. Raspberry?
Ditto, Rob Raspberry, right on LinkedIn.
There we go. You can find me on LinkedIn as well as Twitter. That's all, folks. Have a month.